The 2022 FIFA World Cup was one of the biggest sporting events the world has ever seen. The final showdown between Argentina and France ended in a thrilling penalty shootout. In a do-or-die situation, Kingsley Coman and Aurelien Tchouameni missed two penalties that resulted in France losing the World Cup to Argentina. How did two of the top-tier athletes in the world end up missing penalties in the world's biggest football stage? Was it just bad luck, or is there something physiological about it? We try to find out in this video. My name is Dr. Gokul SR. I am the Blvd physiologist. Welcome to my channel. A penalty kick is basically a one-on-one showdown of the kicker with the keeper. Penalties have been an integral part of football for more than a century. After years of drawing lots and playing rematches to settle stalemates, the penalty shootout was first adopted as a tie-breaking method in 1970. 12 years later, it made its way into the World Cup. On 8 July 1982, France and West Germany faced off against each other in the FIFA World Cup semi-finals. After a lot of back and forth drama during normal and extra times, West Germany won the match 5-4 in a dramatic penalty shootout. This was christened as one of the best football matches of all time. Penalty shootouts have since been inducted into the game for deciding tiebreakers. Despite their popularity, penalty shootouts have faced criticism primarily due to the perceived reliance on luck and individuals than skill and team play. So what do you think? Is it just a game of chances? Let us have a look. The penalty mark, the spot from which a penalty kick is taken, is 11 meters away from the goalpost. A typical penalty kick sends the ball flying at speeds of around 110 km per hour. That means the ball takes only 350 to 400 milliseconds to reach the goalpost. Human reaction time, the quickness with which a person starts to respond to a stimulus, is normally 200 to 250 milliseconds. It can be as low as 150 milliseconds in elite athletes. Even so, a goalkeeper would have to subsequently dive and fully extend to stop the shot, which would take up to 500 milliseconds. That means a fast shot is literally unstoppable, unless the goalkeeper guesses and starts moving before the shot. These are some massive odds against the keeper. Statistics also seem to favor this observation. A normal penalty kick, the one taken during normal or extra time, has a success rate of more than 75%. That means 3 out of 4 shots end up inside the net. But statistics also reveal something interesting. During a shootout, this success rate comes down to less than 70%. It is also lower in World Cup matches than league matches. Even within a shootout, the success rate goes down drastically in the later rounds. What does it all suggest? What is that magical variable that alters the scoring rates in all these above-mentioned scenarios? There is only one answer: pressure. A normal penalty kick is not as easy as it seems. A penalty taker has an available space of only 37 degrees laterally and 13 degrees vertically to direct the ball. This equates to adjusting the foot about 1 to 2 inches at the point of impact on the ball. Add factors like spin to this equation and the margin for error would be even tighter. So if the striking foot were to veer off half an inch, the ball could end up outside the post. On top of this, add the tremendous amount of pressure of being in a World Cup match representing one's country. Remember how stressful it was for us fans to watch the 2022 final? Imagine the plight of the actual players involved. Penalty shootouts are exciting and terrible. It turns players into both heroes and villains. So how exactly does a penalty shootout break down elite athletes? We need to glance into some biomechanics to answer that question. Any movement in our body is made possible by groups of muscles tugging away at individual joints. For an intended action, groups of muscles have to contract in a pattern sequence in order to make that action possible. Let us see how this is for a penalty kick. A penalty kick is not just a simple movement limited to a single joint. Joints in different parts of the body are involved in its proper execution. Every action by the player, from the pre-kick run-up to the post-kick follow-through of the foot, is just as important as the kick itself. When the kicker runs in to take the kick using his right foot, the first important step is the precise placement of the non-striking left foot near the ball. The left leg is going to be the pillar of support during the execution of the shot. Therefore, the left hip and knee are partially flexed so as to bear the weight of the entire body and absorb the resultant forces during ground contact. The left ankle is positioned for proper foot placement, but even before the completion of all these movements, the player initiates the shot with his right leg. When this is done, the right hip is fully extended, the right knee and ankle are flexed in the hope of generating maximum force. These movements occurring in the lower body shifts the center of gravity of the player's body. This is when the shoulder joints come in to help maintain balance. They rotate and move the limbs around to ensure proper weight distribution. Now, the stage is set to unleash the shot. The right hip starts to flex and rotate laterally, maintaining the right knee and ankle flexion, thus generating enough angular velocity to bring the right foot forward quickly. This fast swing is followed by an explosive extension of the knee, causing the right ankle to make contact with the ball, and boom, the ball is struck. The right knee hyperextends and follows through with the kicking motion. The arms and torso twist and turn to decrease the angular velocity of the body while rotating about the left foot. All these movements have to be made in a perfectly synchronous manner for a kicker to successfully complete the shot. Throw in the n number of variations required to generate that perfect trajectory, and we are looking at thousands of ways the shot can go wrong. And there is also the goalkeeper who is trying to stop your shot. So now I ask again, is it a game of chances? Execution of a perfect penalty kick requires the coordinated confluence of joints and muscles. But when a player takes that penalty kick, he is not worried about the position of his hips, knees, ankles and shoulders. All that he is worried is whether he can make the shot or not. So how does this coordination part happen? Welcome to the intricate world of neurophysiology. Skeletal muscles, which are responsible for voluntary movement, cannot contract on their own. They are under the control of a command center consisting of the brain and spinal cord. This command center sends the required impulses through nerves to activate the muscles. Groups of neurons scattered across various parts of the CNS form complex layered circuits that help in various aspects of motor movement. Upper motor neurons, present at higher levels of CNS like the brain, formulate impulses that signal skeletal muscle contraction. However, they do not convey this information directly to the muscles, but through another neuron known as the lower motor neuron or alpha motor neuron, which is present in the spinal cord. Upper motor neuron communicate with lower motor neuron with the help of bundles of nerve fibers known as descending tracts. The pyramidal or corticospinal tract, which means a tract extending from the cerebral cortex to the spinal cord, is an example of this. Every time a muscle contracts, it is due to the flow of impulses from UMN to LMN and down into the muscles. Now that we have established that basic hierarchy of motor pathway organization, we need to understand how the brain exactly creates those patterned impulses. In order to do that, we need to know about various areas of the brain. Now, the brain is one of the most sophisticated life systems that has ever been in existence. From the outside, it may look like a tangled random mess of neurons, but on the inside, it has that innate functional organization that makes us who we are and do what we do. Certain areas of the brain are assigned certain tasks. Here, we are going to focus on a voluntary motor activity like the football kick, so we are going to discuss those regions which are important in this context. Let us start by putting ourselves into the shoes of the penalty taker and focus on the logical sequence of events that occur. We have kept the ball on the penalty spot. We are thinking about the kick. This thinking part is done by an area in the brain known as the prefrontal cortex. When we are thinking about making that kick, what we are essentially doing is analyzing all the information that is available to us, both spatial and temporal. We are observing the ball and how far it is from the goalpost. We are observing the goalkeeper trying to predict what he is about to do. We are thinking about our own training sessions, various ways in which the kick can be taken, previous experiences with the penalty kick, what worked and what didn't. The prefrontal cortex pulls in information from various areas of the brain, manages all these thoughts, and reaches a decision. You decide on which side of the post you are going to aim for, whether to go left, right, or center, high or low, straight or curved. Once this judgment has been made, it is time to involve the areas of the cerebral cortex that are involved in direct motor activity. The part of the brain that lies in front of the central sulcus is the primary motor cortex. Just in front of that, we have the premotor cortex. The primary motor cortex and premotor cortex are essential areas of the brain that are involved in direct motor activity. The primary motor cortex controls sequences of movements involving multiple muscle groups, for example, kicking of a ball. The impulses for these movements are relayed onto the corresponding alpha motor neurons via the descending tracts mentioned earlier. But there are many ways in which a ball can be kicked. As a penalty taker, we have to fix on that one particular way which would give us maximum chance of scoring. Our prefrontal cortex has already reached a decision on which type of kick to employ based on its analysis of various factors and circumstances. This information regarding judgment is passed on to the premotor cortex, which processes and selects the appropriate motor plan for that intended kick. This motor plan encodes information such as the muscles to be stimulated, their order and extent of firing, etc. Basically, when we are thinking, if I kick the ball at this spot with this part of my foot with this much force and in this direction, it should go to this part of the net. The premotor cortex formulates a neuronal firing sequence which encodes all this information, which is to be passed on to the muscles via the motor pathways. Accompanying this thought process, we also visualize and mentally rehearse these movements. This is done with the help of yet another area known as the supplementary motor area. But the problem here is that the premotor cortex has a bit too much in its plate. It has to deal with so many permutations and combinations of movements that it usually ends up signaling both correct and incorrect actions. Thus, there needs to be a system that can filter out these incorrect error signals from the correct ones before passing the final plan to the primary motor cortex for execution. This is why the impulses are made to run by a side loop circuit involving another organ known as the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia are a group of loosely aggregated neuronal masses found deep inside the brain tissue. Simply put, the basal ganglia has got two major circuits, a direct and an indirect circuit. The direct circuit is excitatory and it amplifies desired motor activity. The indirect circuit is inhibitory and it reduces undesired motor activity. When the premotor cortex sends out a plan comprising of both correct and incorrect signals, they are run by the basal ganglia. The direct circuit amplifies the strength of correct signals, while the indirect circuit dampens the incorrect ones. You could say that the basal ganglia is like a knob for adjusting motor signal activity and allows its fine-tuning. These modified signals are then routed back into the primary motor cortex, which can now execute the movement, which in our case is the penalty kick. Now that the signals have been enhanced by the basal ganglia, they are communicated by upper motor neurons in the primary motor cortex to the lower motor neurons in the spinal cord via the corticospinal tract. The alpha motor neurons stimulate the respective muscles according to the motor plan and coordinates their contraction, relaxation, timing, force and direction to bring about the intended kick. But because of the sheer number of structures involved, there is still a large possibility for errors to crop up in the movement. This requires a mechanism which can detect real-time changes in the movement and make the necessary corrections. That is why the motor pathway has got yet another side loop circuit which does exactly this. Say hello to the cerebellum. Cerebellum, or little brain as it is fondly called, plays a pivotal role in seamless motor activity. Just like descending tracts carrying information from brain to spinal cord, we have ascending tracts that carry information in the reverse direction. Some of these ascending tracts arising from joint and position sensors convey these information to the cerebellum. Information regarding the position of each part of the body in the spatial plane is made available to the cerebellum. The cerebellum acts like an overseer. It has got a blueprint of the motor plan. It will try to suggest to the muscles how exactly they should contract. It proactively instructs various body parts the exact location they have to be in the upcoming second for that perfect movement. And when it sees that there is a deviation in real-time movement from this original blueprint, it steps in to order the necessary corrections. So halfway through your kick, when the foot is swaying half an inch away from the original trajectory, it is the cerebellum that notes this and brings it back. In a nutshell, the prefrontal cortex thinks and decides, the premotor cortex plans, the basal ganglia fine-tunes, the motor cortex executes, the spinal cord contacts, the muscle contracts, and the cerebellum corrects. This is the recipe for a motor movement. When all these elements come together in a synchronized fashion, we have the perfect execution of that kick we envisioned inside our head, which hopefully leads to a goal. This is literally what happens inside a penalty taker's head. Professional athletes spend a significant part of their time training. All the neural circuits that we mentioned earlier are reinforced again and again during these practice sessions. So it should be really easy for them to score that penalty kick, just as easy as you can click that subscribe button. So if you find my content interesting, please like and share this video with your friends, and do consider subscribing to my channel for more updates. Now let's get back to business. So why do professional footballers miss a penalty kick? We know that the answer is pressure, but how exactly do they choke under pressure? Just imagine yourself as the player who is making the long walk from the center line to the goal post for a World Cup penalty shootout. Tens of thousands of people and hundreds of cameras who have their sights glued upon you. Fans chanting your name and cheering your team. Your own teammate stationed far away along the central line, and the only person who is close by is the intimidating opposition goalkeeper. All that is left is you and your thoughts. What if I miss? Would I let my team down? Would I let my country down? Would my career, which is everything that I have worked for so far in my life, be the same anymore? Your whole world could turn upside down with this single shot. Your prefrontal cortex runs haywire and starts signaling random impulses. You cannot decide which kick to employ. Your premotor cortex is not able to plan a proper motor sequence. Your basal ganglia cannot decide which ones to filter out. You finally decide to just get done with it, and your primary motor cortex executes a half-cooked motor plan into action. Your run-up is inadequate, your foot placement is incorrect, your leg swing is insufficient, your contact with the ball is inaccurate, and the result is inevitable. You miss. Even elite athletes who train their entire lifetime for high-pressure situations and get paid in the millions are not immune to worrying, overthinking, and choking under pressure. So it is quite normal for us mere mortals to do that in everyday life. What really needs to be done is to get a hold of your thoughts, dial it down, prioritize them, and put them into action. Bend those neurophysiological elements to your will. With that being said, this is the Bloody Physiologist signing off. Have a great day.